A HIPAA violation is a failure to comply with any aspect of HIPAA laws and regulations. This can occur when a covered entity or business associate violates one or more aspects of the HIPAA privacy rule, security rule, or breach notification rule. Now, there are many recurring and common violations. One such violation is unauthorized access of PHI. A second violation could be failing to conduct a risk analysis. Many companies also fail to implement safeguards to ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of PHI. No matter how someone mishandles or discloses PHI, the Department of Health and Human Services, Office for Civil Rights, or the OCR, would rather not implement a fine or send someone to prison. However, depending on the severity of the situation, the OCR can implement penalties to make sure the situation will not happen again. There are 3 tiers of criminal HIPAA violations. Each tier is more severe than the last. Hi everyone, I'm Matt from eTactics, and today I'm going to tell you about HIPAA criminal penalties and real-world examples. Before we get started though, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the button below. While you're down there, hit that alert bell icon next to it as well, so when we post new helpful content, you get notified. The first tier for criminal HIPAA violations involves the wrongful disclosure of individually identifiable health information. The maximum penalties involve a $50,000 fine and/or up to 1 year in prison. To help you understand how this can happen, let me tell you about a situation that occurred at the beginning of 2018. You see, this criminal penalty went to a behavioral health analyst who was working with autistic individuals. He stole the PHI of over 300 current and former patients after he got terminated. An investigation discovered that he was the perpetrator by tracing the downloads to his IP address. This individual pleaded guilty. He then received a 30-day jail sentence, and he was ordered 3 years of supervised release and had to pay an over $14,000 fine in restitution. The second tier for criminal HIPAA violations involves the wrongful disclosure of individually identifiable health information committed under false pretenses. This last part is what differentiates it from Tier 1. The maximum penalties involve a $100,000 fine and/or 5 years in prison. My next example that falls within this criminal tier comes from a healthcare employee, but not just any healthcare employee, one that accessed her ex-boyfriend's PHI who was being treated at the hospital where she worked. However, he was not one of her patients, so she should not have had access to his medical records at all. She then took a picture of the medical photograph and shared it with a third person outside of the organization as well. She ended up pleading guilty and received a sentence of 5 years probation and a $1,000 fine. She will no longer be able to work for any organization that deals with the private medical information of other people as well. The third tier for common HIPAA violations involves the wrongful disclosure of individually identifiable health information under false pretenses. In this instance, the perpetrator does so with the intent to sell, transfer, or use for commercial advantage, personal gain, or malicious harm. The maximum penalties involve a $250,000 fine and/or 10 years in prison. The real-world example in this criminal tier comes from an administrator of a medical clinic in Florida. This person sought out patients' birth dates and social security numbers in order to steal their identities. She then sold the identities for profit or defrauded businesses herself. Authorities found over 113 stolen identities when they searched her vehicle. She ended up pleading guilty to wire fraud and identity theft. For the wire fraud offense, she received a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison. She will then serve a mandatory consecutive term of 2 years imprisonment due to the identity theft charge. As you can see, HIPAA violations can be intense. Individuals who are convicted of criminal activity involving medical records can face between 1 to 20 years in prison, be fined between $50,000 and $250,000, or both. Yes, this is quite a range of punishments. It just depends on the severity of the criminal activity. Just don't mess with PHI of other people when you're not authorized to. That's what it comes down to. If you'd like to learn more about HIPAA criminal activities and real-world examples, reach out to eTactics. And you already made it this far into the video, so you might as well like it, share it, and comment below. Well, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to our YouTube channel.